you surprised?
Okay, Madam Mayor, we are ready.
I thought it started.
Great, thank you.
So it was 5 minutes late.
Go ahead and call the work session to review and discuss water and sewer tariff changes to order. So we'll make sure that Zoom is up and going. We're up and going? Okay.
Okay.
So, I want to start off, if this will work for council, is I was thinking we turn it over to Doug and also to the contractor to kind of review what's been done to date, highlight some of the changes, and then we'll turn it over to the public for comments and questions, and then we'll bring it back to council for comments and questions. Does that sound all right with everyone? Okay, Doug, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll let you kick it off.
Okay. Work session for the water sewer rate study that we're working on. We have Brian Mance is the contractor with GovRates, who has put together the last year. We've been putting together a study to go through our water sewer rates to make adjustments to first off classifications, getting figured out, and trying to simplify the class systems with the different ERUs, and we basically percent or so. So I think it was like a 1.5% on this latest spreadsheet you have, and in front of you to go through these. But residential, I did a handout to everybody, a little colored one that was not in the packet. We just had got it produced today. But it shows for water, residential pays 41, almost 42% of the costs, and on sewer they pay almost 59% of the costs, 58.8 of that's the total revenues come for those. So we do have more residents obviously than business, but the largest use comes out of some of the business for the total use, and that's the strain on the system we have as we're trying to keep up with infrastructure. To get to these, and I'll let Brian jump in a minute, but we went through the study on what do we have coming up for infrastructure charge. One of them would be the sludge removal out at Low Point and SMIC, but that's a big ticket that we have to save for. We're sure hoping to get a grant at some point, and maybe that can help out for that, but it's right now we have to be able to get that done in, I believe 2024 is where we have it scheduled. We took our infrastructure that we were looking at and spread it out for the next 10 years of what we would need in 10 years, and then took the first 5 years of rates to get up toward that. So these rates you have are for 5 years of the 10-year infrastructure program to go through. I'm real happy for the rate structure to go to the metered program, just to simplify and try to get the questions away from our finance department with the billing desk up front and having to try to decide the ERUs and there's so many different scenarios there. And this becomes a much fairer system. It's a user pay system. The difference though, like I said, going into the study, we're at right now is usually the high-end users. They were used to a declining scale, and I say the high-end ones that were on meters prior. They were on a declining rate basis, which now it's a single rate payer, and so as the more they use, the more difference it makes in their percentage and how much they have. They also have the best chance to capture some savings on just use and waste anywhere they can to try to conserve the water. Being the volumes they use, it's a real high volume area. So we're kind of looking at those. We're looking at the sewer also. We can see a little bit more of an increase in those same ones. The sewer picks up, and typically the sewer systems that are putting in that much more waste, it's been going in at the declining rate also, yet all the rest of the user groups are paying the regular rate. So we're just trying to even things up, square them up a little bit. We don't want to hurt anybody, any businesses, but at the same time, we can't not do some of these. It's kind of, and I've been in the council meetings before and where we're at about kicking the can down the road. I mean, we're trying to do a small increments of rate changes rather than getting hit when we do have a big ticket item and then having to jump the rates all at once. So that's where we are, and Brian maybe could add a little more before we go, and what I'd like to do is get it to a little bit of a question and answer the best we can. I did have the chance to meet with a couple of businesses to go through things. But the questions, I mean, they're pretty much in the study. You can see it's the higher rate that are going to pay a little more on where they're at with this system. So Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Very well.
Awesome. That's an improvement from the last meeting. So anyway, for the record, my name is Brian Mance from GovRates, and so far, as you're well aware, we've had 2 public work sessions on the rate study, and we've also had the opportunity to meet with most of you individually, and we've discussed how in the different work sessions we've talked about how it's been a long time since the city last viewed or performed a formal rate study, and we discussed the serious renewal and replacement needs that the water and sewer systems are facing. And we've worked to identify the most critical capital needs in the multi-year plan. So we've talked about the percentage revenue increases needed, and we've discussed how a portion of these needs are addressed through annual inflationary adjustments allowed through the existing rate tariffs. And as Doug mentioned, we're proposing a phased-in plan, and I can't stress how important that is with respect to avoiding rate shock. I've communicated in the past. I've worked with some utilities that that were dealing with a 95% rate adjustment in 1 year, and I'm currently working one that's looking at a 36% increase for this fiscal year. So it's just good to have a kind of a phasing alternative available. So we also talked about how a rate study is a 2-step process. So the first step is to figure out how much revenue we need. And then the second step is to design rates to recover that revenue among the customer classes. And a key takeaway is that to the extent that changes in the rate structures are made to benefit certain customers or classes, other customers must make up the difference. And I've had experiences where rates were adjusted to address the complaints of a few customers, and so therefore cost recovery was shifted to other classes. And then the next public meeting, a much larger group of customers showed up to complain. So it's a balancing act. And as Doug mentioned, the first rate adjustment here, it does target larger water users, and really probably the only way to lessen the larger user increases would be to increase the rates for the residential class. As Doug mentioned, right now we've assumed that the residential class rates are remaining at the same at the rates at the levels that are in the existing rate tariff. So as I mentioned, we've had 2 public work sessions and individual meetings. We've listened to the City Council guidance and also public feedback regarding the proposed rate structure changes, and we feel that the proposed rate tariffs reflect a balance of the issues discussed. And nobody likes rate increases, and I don't like having to communicate the need for rate increases, but certainly water and sewer service they're essential life-sustaining services that have to be funded. So as I've discussed, the first year adjustments reflect revisions to the rate structure, and then the future rate adjustments are proposed to be across the board. The idea being that we'll monitor the city would monitor revenue collections and possibly perform another rate review once you have 1 year or more of data under the updated rates, at which time you can determine if further adjustments to the rate structure make sense. So what as Doug mentioned, we're hoping to have final direction from the City Council on the rate tariffs tonight so that a public hearing on the rates can be held next week. And with that said, I'm going to share my screen so that we can kind of talk about the changes to the rate tariff since we last talked. Let's see. Okay, can everyone see the screen that says City of Seward, Alaska tariff for water rates, charges, and fees?
Yep.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so just to kind of go through the changes.
And if folks can't see it at home, I might say if you have that packet in front of you, it looks like on page 35 of the packet is where this starts. Go ahead.
Okay, so the changes that we've made are, first of all, for metered service. Before we had a monthly base charge and then also a volumetric charge for all usage. We've reverted back to a minimum monthly charge, and we've maintained the minimum monthly charges that are represented in the existing rate tariff for the larger meter sizes. And then for the 1-inch water meter or smaller, we did increase it from I think it was $24 to $40 because the $24 seemed a little bit to be too light. So as I mentioned, we're maintaining the existing minimum charges that are currently reflected in the water rate tariff. The residential rates were maintained at the levels in the existing tariff, which, as Doug mentioned, are about a 1.5% increase over the 2020 rates. One comment that was made in the last working session was to add the ERU determination methodology for any unmetered customers that are required to be metered but still haven't switched over to metered service. And so in the tariffs, we did add an exhibit 3 with that detail, and that's the same methodology that's in the existing rate tariff. So it allows someone reading this tariff to be able to reference how their ERUs would be determined prior to when they switch over to metered service. And then I guess the only other change that's been made, other than I think just some wordsmithing to make some wordsmithing changes that were talked about in the last discussion. I think the only other change that is on the sewer side. For tank truck operators, we are right now the utility has a hard time metering the amount of sewage that's actually being dumped into the system, and so we're proposing that a flat fee per dump be charged for tank truck operators based on the tank truck capacity. And this is a methodology that's consistent with what's used by other Alaska utilities. But those are the major changes. And like I said, we have been listening to the council direction and also the customer comments and public and customer comments that have been that we've received. And like I said, we feel like these recommended rate tariffs are a reasonable balance of all the issues that we've been discussed so far. So that's all I have. Did I miss anything, Doug?
No, I think that's good. I think we could open up for any council questions or let the mayor dictate who to call on and where.
Yeah, let's open it up to the public. Let's do our phone call out first.
I have one person signed up to speak, and it is Tom Tugas.
Okay, and then we'll go Zoom, and then we'll go in-house.
Hello, Tom Tugas.
Hi, Tom. It's Brenda. You're with City Council for the work session.
Yes, thank you. I spent about 3 hours to understand these changes. And I guess I have three basic questions. Can you hear me, Brenda?
Yes.
My three questions are, number one, why are we doing this now? Number two is the amount of the change. And number three, of course, is the timing. So, the first thing that I looked at is why are we doing this? And I looked at the CAFR today. And, as you know, the city has $45,235,000 in cash and investments. And of that, $2,762,000 of it is cash that is in the water department. $2,739,000 is cash that's in the sewer department. And that's on page 87 and 88 of the CAFR. And so, number one, the water and sewer department combined have over $5.5 million in cash. And the two entities, the water department, if you look at the cash flow from the water department and the sewer department, they had positive cash flow of $972,000 in 2019, which is the latest CAFR. And they paid $554,000 to the general fund for administration. So that's a total of $1,526,000 that was cash coming from the customers to the city in addition to the cost of running the water and sewer department. So that's number one, is why are we doing this if these two funds are very healthy, have huge cash reserves, and so that's number one, is why. Number two is that the current, I spent a long time today figuring out our bills, and our current bill for water and sewer is $2,382. Well, I just picked June, and this year, this last June, our bill was $2,382. Under the current proposal, our bill would go to $3,412. So that's $1,000 a month increase, which is 41.6%. And then if you look at the spreadsheet exhibit number one, of course, it shows that everyone's bill over the next 4 years is going to go up 46%. And so all of these categories have a 46% increase built in over the next 4 years. And then the third thing is timing. Why are we doing this now? As most of you know, my business was down 75% in 2020, and we'll be lucky if we reach 50% in 2019 in this current year. So most of our businesses have had to go out and borrow money to survive. And so to me, it does not make sense to raise people's rates by 41% at this time. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for the caller?
Tom, this is Doug. What page you said you said it lists everyone for a 46% increase? You listed page 1 or of the spreadsheet?
It says schedule of monthly water use rates, and it's got
Was that in the CAFR? What is that at?
It's page 38 in the packet.
It's in the packet. It's in today's packet. It's on page 38. Or it says page 4 of 14. And for example, it shows the monthly for unmetered customers. It would go from $49.55 to $72.55 by 2025. Do you see?
Yep, yeah, I'm looking at that.
And then, of course, ours, which is the 2-inch to 4-inch meter, would go from $248.70 to $364.
so the 5-year gets it up to the 40 some percent you were talking, and you're looking at the minimum charges, right? Those are the monthly.
Well, these are the base charges, and then of course the consumption charges are on top of that. And
No, we changed that, Tom. The base charge, it's no longer a base charge, it's only a monthly minimum. You don't have a base charge and usage, you just have the monthly minimum, and if you're under that with your usage, you'd pay the minimum. We did start with that, so there's maybe some confusion, but we did start in with an infrastructure charge, trying to do that as a month ago or so. So I don't know if you got the same one we're looking at shows minimum monthly charge. Does that show base infrastructure, the one you're looking at?
Well, I was looking at my actual bill, and of course my bill says water block 1, $308, and then water block 2, $867. So you put those two together, and it's the $1,176, which is very close to the spreadsheet that was attached to the packet.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
$2 off, but it's very close.
Looking at that page, and what you're looking at, there isn't both. You don't have both infrastructure or minimum and usage charge. You have only usage. The minimum applies only if your usage is under that minimum charge.
So what is the difference between block 1 and block 2? On the bill?
Oh, on your bills, the current bills, block 1 is the 0 to 50,000 gallons. Block 2 is the next. I want to say it's 50,000. No, it's 10,000 then 50,000. Block 1 is up to 10, I believe. I can look. Let me look it up quick. Is that right? Yeah. The block 1 is your first 10,000 gallons. Block 2 is then your next 50,000. Block 3 would be up to your next 500,000, I believe, is what on your bill it is. And that's part of why we're trying to do some of this, Tom, is the bills are pretty confusing the way they are, trying to figure out, this block and how's that go to the different ones. So we're trying to standardize things and make things much easier to understand.
But do you agree that according to the chart, our bill would go from basically $2,400 a month to $3,400 a month?
I'd have to sit down with you, Tom, and see just what you're adding in. If you're adding that infrastructure charge in, then we've got something we've got to pull out of there. But I'd be glad to sit down with you even tomorrow and go through it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, like I said, I spent a lot of time trying to understand it today, but then I looked at the chart that is attached to tonight's packet, and again, if you look on the combined bill difference, my bill came up to 41% different. I mean, right there on the spreadsheet, it shows that the percentages get up into the 20, 30, 40%.
Yeah, and that spreadsheet, are you on what size meter are you? Are you 2.5 or 2 1/4 up to 4?
No, I believe we're a 2-inch meter, so we're the 1.5 to the sheet that I could tie my rate to as close as possible was the 1.5 to 2-inch meter.
Okay, and then your monthly usage, I guess it varies in the winter to the summer.
So, well, I guess let's just pull it back to the base unit. So if it's as soon as practical, $6.63 per gallon, and then in 2025 it's 9.71 cents per gallon. That's 46% difference, isn't it, Brian?
Yes.
Yeah. So it is 46.
It is a by the end of the 5 years.
Yeah, it'll be a 46%.
Correct. Yeah, I believe it's an average of 9% or 7% per year, I believe.
Yeah. So regardless, But Tom, you're right, that was a base amount, and I think at the last council meeting, the discussion was to make that a minimum charge, but you're still spot on that it's a 46% increase. So, can you talk a little bit about, go ahead, Rissy.
I was just gonna say, from what I can see, it's 46% increase for sewer and approximately 25% for water, right?
I didn't calculate water.
Well, in the spreadsheet, they have everything up above. So for example, if on page 11 of 77, if you used 176,000 gallons, it's just the first one up top, and you follow it across, it'd be a 24% increase under the water column and a 44% increase under sewer.
I can, the percentage increases are for water, it's 10% per year, and for sewer, it's 4% per year. So someone receiving both water and wastewater service is basically, it's an overall 7%. With your combined bill, it'd be around 7% per year. Now, with respect to why are we doing it now? One of the things that we talked about is that right now the water and sewer fund has historically not been able to address a lot of the capital needs, and we had talked about how here's a picture of the 200,000 gallon Lowell Canyon water storage tank that has to be replaced. We talked about how utility infrastructure is often out of sight and out of mind, and you've got a lot of assets, really old assets, reaching the end of their service lives. Many of them are over 30 years old, and a key takeaway is that these problems, these issues won't go away, but they'll be more expensive to address in the future. And right now we have the opportunity to phase in the adjustments over time so we can address these critical capital needs. Obviously, the longer you delay the process, then you lose your ability to phase in the adjustments, and then you're looking at some substantial increases all at once. Like I said, I've had to deal with some utilities that have had 95% or 36% adjustments in a single year, and that's just not a pleasant discussion to have.
So, just going off of that, what are you hearing out of the feds and out of the state for, and then I'll get back, but specific to this topic, what are you hearing for funding infrastructure with COVID project money?
So we're still waiting to hear more about, there's some money that's going towards, from the borough. We're still trying to figure out what that, we don't know what that is yet, coming back to sewer. We figured 580,000 coming from the feds through that bill that the president just signed. So, but that's gonna help with the shortfall in the general fund, which we know we have. So, but
So
there is a
what
GO bond.
What about like this project? Do we have plans ready to go if there's federal funds shaken out for some of these water sewer projects?
Yes, we're working on the same ones. We do have to do the same, very close to the same sludge removal out at Lowell Point, or at the lagoon out there, and that also then we do SMIC at the same time. So that's a quick, easy one. We do have other plans that we have we have our 400,000 gallon tank that we would go to a 400,000 gallon tank up there just for the future city. I mean, we're there already. We need some more water storage. So that's what we would do with that, and yes, we have the plans for those tanks and everything.
We're watching for those opportunities?
Yeah, we are. They're listed in our opportunities within federal, and we're also applying for grants for them. I mean, I wish I could come in right now and say, hey, we got a $2 million grant and we're gonna pull this and lower some rates.
Yeah.
And I would look to see if we couldn't do that anyway, if we were to get it somehow, to then pass it back to the citizens. But how that divvies up is gonna, we'll put it right through the same formula.
So I know Tom's still on the line for more questions, but I know Brian said that you guys talked to businesses. Do you know how many businesses you talked to, or did you look at their bills with them, or what did that look like?
We only had one that brought in that we wanted to go through bills. We had a couple others, probably only 4 that called.
Yeah.
You know, that called and wanted to just discuss it a little bit and see where we didn't have a lot of, you know, it's been going on for quite a while here. And as you guys know, we've had the work sessions and the council meetings and gone through and trying to get as much public comment as we can. And you guys have the same as what we have, or a little more that you might get.
And one of the reasons why we did revert to the minimum charge is based on the feedback, the public comment that we received on this. So again, you know, we have been listening to both the council and the public comment on in trying to derive some rate tariffs that reflect a reasonable balance.
So with that positive cash flow that comes in every year that Tom was talking about, where does that go? And I guess the finance director isn't here, but does that just go into the reserves, or does it go back in? Do you have a specific reserve to your enterprise fund? Can you talk about that?
We have 4 enterprise funds, 2 water, 1 SMIC and 1 in town. We have the same with sewer, 2 more enterprise funds that go through. I'd like to check the numbers. That he said it was in the CAFRE, I believe. It's not what I've been reported to have.
So Brian, did
So
you
going
look
through
at
those-
those numbers too when you were looking at what was available with the savings?
Absolutely, and you can see with the, what we do is we project the financial position for the, we target a certain cash balance, and we've for both the water system and the sewer system, we're projecting what will be the effect on the cash balance. As you can see, we try and am I sharing my screen?
No, what was the cash balance you were targeting in both those enterprise funds? Oh.
Am I sharing my screen?
Yes.
Because I want to.
Not at the moment, no.
Oh.
Okay, I need to if I can, I want to share my screen.
You should be able to now, Brian.
Okay, let's see. If I can. Where is everyone? Okay, here we go.
Command center.
Got about 10 files out. Okay, so let me see if I can.
There you go.
Let me try. So what we do in our analysis is we do try and project financial positions, and so for both the water system and the sewer system, as you can see, we start out with healthy cash balances, but we are anticipating that with the implementation of the capital improvement program, we tried to, ideally, if you were a strong credit, you'd want to be at 1 year days cash on hand, which is basically 1 year of operating expenses, subtracting depreciation and amortization. But we didn't go there. We're kind of targeting a 6 months days cash on hand. So we're, as you can see, for the water system, through the implementation of the capital improvement program, we are anticipating to kind of reach our minimum cash balance. And also on the sewer system, the same thing with the implementation of the program. This drop here is due to the lagoon sludge removal. So you can see we're not showing a big buildup of cash, and of course we'd recommend that the rates be reviewed every few years, so that to make sure that you always have the ability to phase in your rates, and you're not stuck with a big one-time increase. But as you can see, we're spending the cash. We're anticipating to spend the cash in the execution of the capital program.
And with that
we're not.
with that capital program Tom, that would be that the city fully funded all those projects without any assistance from anyone else, is that correct?
I think that we assumed some of the projects, I believe, like the Gateway Tank roof, we assumed that that would only be 50% funded by the city. But certainly, you know, we would certainly, and we've talked about this throughout the whole rate study process, that if you did get some grant funding, we'd immediately want to pass it through to the customers. But right now we don't have it. But meanwhile, we have substantial renewal and replacement needs that need to be addressed.
Councilmember Pascarino?
I asked Doug this earlier, so hopefully I'm not catching you off guard, but of those projects, are those all projects that can be done in the next 5 years?
These projects, I believe, were through 2029, so they were a 10-year, the list of these were 10, so we're not trying to do all these in 5, but we're trying to get, as we go through the ones, we had them scheduled out, and so that's where this comes in, where like the sewer, one would come down, now you have another project coming in, and so we schedule them out that way. It was 10 years worth of these projects.
But the increases that we're doing, we're going to get that money in 5 years for 10 years of projects?
No, it just would continue on to build those then as you go. We'd be doing the projects listed for 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Those would be the ones we'd be doing. We have the other projects in this list that are listed 26, 27, 28, 29.
Go ahead.
So the money that we're generating over the next 5 years is only enough to fund half of those. So we're assuming for an additional 5 years, we'll probably increase the exact same amount to be able to get all
I do not, I don't, we're seeing more like inflationary adjustments after the initial 5 years, and you know, possibly you know, depending upon how you know, depending upon how your revenue collections are, maybe you wouldn't need any more rate adjustments, and you could just do the inflationary adjustments that are recognized, you know, as part of the that are currently recognized in your existing tariff.
Councilmember Singer? And Tom, I know you're still on the phone. I'll give you a chance to make a final comment. You just spurned a lot of questions. If you had anything else to say, sir.
Well, I appreciate the comments. I guess I would like to see and really understand the 5-year plan, but right now, of course, we have $5.5 million in cash, and we're generating an additional $972,000 per year in cash from the water and sewer department, in addition to the money that's going to the general fund. So that's over the next 5 years at the current rates. We'll have $10.5 million for capital projects in the water and sewer fund, and that's without changing any rates at all. And then what it appears is that immediately the proposal is to increase rates by, for our situation, by 41.6%, and then in addition to that 41.6%, another 46% over the next 5 years. So we take a huge jump this year, and then it would continue to go up every year for the next 5 years. And so I get that. You know, I would say first thing I got to ask is, why are we doing this? To me, number one, it's way too much, and number two, it's completely the wrong time to be doing it. So I'll leave you alone at that, but thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
I do feel like it's important to clarify again. It's a 10%. Yeah, the water rates would be going up by 46%. The sewer rates would be going less. On a combined basis, it would be about 31%. So and just about everyone has, I think everyone does have water and sewer service, except for you know, the few industrial customers.
So I have a question. What if we raise these rates and Icicle Seafoods closes, so we lose a 15% customer? What would that do to everything?
Well, the Icicle is going to we are recognizing them as a customer. I mean, certainly, I'm not going to say it wouldn't affect your financial picture, but also, if you don't need as much water demand, you may be able to do some. There may be some adjustments to the capital program that could be made. So it would just, if that happened, that's something that could be addressed at the time. But I'm not anticipating that these rates are going to cause them to close.
Have we talked directly with them? Do you know?
I have not heard from them at all.
We need to be reaching out to folks, would be my comments. We need to talk to them. We need to make sure that they're at the table. Just because I think we have been a fishing town for a long time, and if we start to lose that major industry, we're in trouble. I mean, the easiest customer to get is a customer that you have and a community partner, but that's just my opinion. Let's go to, is there anyone on Zoom with their hands raised?
Yep, it looks like Tara Reamer.
Okay, let's turn it over to her, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Great, thanks to council for taking my comments. And I wanted to just make sure that you all are clear on how this is impacting large businesses, because you keep getting clarifications that are, I think, not understanding what Tom and I are saying from the perspective of our organization. So I'm, as you know, I'm the president and CEO of the Alaska Sea Life Center. Our water bill and Tom's are pretty close in the summer. We're actually a little bit bigger, I would guess, based on the example he gave over the entire year. What businesses like us are seeing is an immediate increase in the 40% range. Ours, I calculated out to 44%. And then on top of that, over the next 5 years, we get up to another 47%. And this is together. We're looking at all together, water plus sewer. So one is increasing at 4% per year, one's increasing at 10% per year. On average, it's 7%. But the net impact is for every $100 that Tom and I are paying now, as soon as you pay this, as soon as you pass this, if you pass this tariff, we are paying $140 to $145. And in 5 years, we're paying $210. So our water and sewer costs will more than double between now and 5 years from now for the large businesses. The large businesses are very impacted here. And I didn't actually realize how large we were in the water world. In sewer, I talked to Doug this morning, and we're in the top 10. There's a few hotels up there, the fisheries. This is a significant impact, and when I keep hearing that the point of this is to avoid a rate shock and to not have to have unpleasant discussions about 35% increases in 1 year, well, that's exactly what you're doing. You are giving businesses like mine and Tom a rate shock right now, and then it's going to continue to get worse over the next 4 years. So I understand the goal here is to simplify the rate structure and get rid of these different volumetric discounts. But what you're doing is giving a tremendous rate shock to large businesses that use a lot of water, and that includes probably every hotel in town, right? The laundromat, and then people that have a lot of toilets and a lot of showers. It's a very large impact in a very tough year, mid-year, when there's not time to plan for it, when we're already into our budget cycle. You're already into your budget cycle. So I definitely wanted to echo what Tom said about why now. Like, I see that there is this need coming. I also, thanks for Tom to pointing it out, there's $5 million in the bank right now that can be used to start some of these projects. But I think there needs to be a realistic time frame on especially the big increases that you're putting on your large business customers. Is there some way to phase that in? Is there some way to have, do most of what you're trying to do now, and phase in the part that's impacting the big businesses over time? Is there a way, I thought I heard at the February council meeting, direction from council to have some impact on the residences. What I saw on here was, in the February presentation, there was no impact on residential customers. In the presentation that came out from the clerk's office, there was a 1% increase to residential customers. I don't know why it's seeming more fair to give businesses a 40% increase, 45% increase, but there's no, going at 1% on residential, that's so trivial. It's like, what would happen if you went to 2% with that? It's putting the burden totally on the big businesses right now. And you can see that in the charts that was in the packet. I'm guessing from looking at the charts, I have no idea what Icicle's levels are, but I'm guessing that they're looking at a 60% increase overnight if you pass this tariff. And that is a bit of a, I'd say, to quote, a rate shock, and will not be a pleasant discussion. So, again, I think Tom came up with the same numbers I did. I went through them with Doug. We're understanding how these rates are impacting us. 40 to 45% overnight, and then an additional 40-some% cumulatively over the next 5 years. It's cumulative. It's 7% a year on top of each other, gives you that over 5 years. Coming up with a way of avoiding this level of rate shock would be, is really, I think, what council needs to be requesting right now. And really looking at the timing. Is there a way that some of this can be done to simplify your rate structure? There are parts of this tariff that are fantastic, that are really what need to happen. But looking at some of your big hotels and some of your big businesses that suffered last year and saying, here's a 40% increase mid-year that you didn't budget is a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. So I will stop there. Thank you for letting me speak, and I really appreciate having another work session on this. This is a very different proposal than what we saw a month ago. It's better. Our increase was 70% at that point, 70 overnight, plus then the other increase. So at 45%, 44%, this is better, but if we could do something that was a little more phased in, I greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Does anyone else have their hand raised?
Looks like Brian Mance.
I have my hand raised.
Oh.
I wasn't intending
Brian,
to have my hand raised.
Okay, sorry, Brian O'Leary.
Oh, different Brian.
Different Brian.
Sorry,
Different Brian.
Okay.
Brian O'Leary.
Hey, good evening. Can everyone hear me? Brian O'Leary.
Hi, Brian. Go ahead.
Hey, so good evening. I'm taking over as the plant manager here for formerly Icicle Seafood Sewer Facility, and I've had about 6 minutes to go through and look through a lot of this. It does seem very substantial. I can't get into concrete details as the two previous speakers were able to. I would definitely like to engage with Brian and the other gentlemen on what this would look like for our water billing and sewage. I was told roughly we're consuming anywhere from 40 to 60 million gallons a year at the sewer facility. This would be at a 60% increase, pretty substantial. And to recapture this cost, it's going to get passed on to the fishermen. And it's a bad ripple effect to have such a huge shock, especially in 1 year, as echoed by some of the other bigger businesses as well in town. So I would like to engage and get a better feeling for what this would be, the direct cost on our business, and work through some of this. And also, is there going to be any type of discussions regarding, the gentleman before was encouraging that we look through on ways to reduce our water consumption. Is there going to be any phased-in incentives or rebates or engaging in those activities for big businesses like ourselves, Life Center. Again, I want to get engaged on the topic and become more knowledgeable because this is a pretty big rate hike for us.
Okay, thank you, sir. I see the Public Works Director taking some notes, and I think we have your email, so we'll connect those up. Yeah, because I mean, I'm looking across like the water sewer service bill calculation tool, and as you know, the higher you go, the more percentage at that. Fine, and this is just for the first year, right? Is that what's provided in the packet? This is just the first year, all of these, this is just the first year?
The map there,
Yeah.
and that gives your size on it. It had a, to move out, but that gives you your first year for every, the gallonage for each meter size.
Yeah, I mean, because by the time we get to the end of this table, it's closer to,
100%.
yeah. So, and then we
I
do,
mean, there,
go ahead.
there's no doubt that you know, the rate structure change does affect the higher water users, and you know, usually with most of the utilities I work with, they like the thought of shifting, you know, that shifting more cost burden for the water system to the people that are actually using more of the water system. However, you know, we do have one you know, solution that could ease the burden for these for these larger users, who have appeared to each of our work sessions, and that would be to increase the rates for the residential class. If the residential class were to also have a I guess I'll say a 7% increase, then we'd probably be looking at a monthly bill. Is my screen still shared?
Yeah.
Is it?
No, we're not. You're not sharing right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Let me share my screen again. So here's a comparison of our current rates. I mean, the residential customers could have, we could increase their rates a little bit more to help offset the rate increases for some of the larger users, and I mean, and the rates would still not change position on a comparison level. But that's just a council decision. We've talked about how you know, if you make certain concessions to one group of customers, then another group of customers also has to pay for the difference. And so I don't think it would be a big well, it's as big a deal as you feel it is. But if the residential rates were to be increased a little bit more to lessen the impact on the larger water users, that's certainly a solution that we could move forward with. But we would need your direction for that.
Okay, thank you. And then we do have some folks in council chambers. Did you want to make any comments? Go ahead.
So I'm here representing accounting for Suds and Swirl Laundromat. These are the owners. But I ran some numbers today, and I took the 2019 actual bill, and I applied the new rate to that bill, to that usage. And then it changed, you know, like one month it was 15% higher on water and 23% higher on sewer. One month it was 23% higher on water and 41% higher on sewer, and I understand that that's based on the block usage. But if you apply just that set rate, and I did a weighted average so that I could see what it would be at the end of the year, what they would have to raise their prices to accommodate this increase. And it's 16% on water, and this is on an annual weighted average, 16% on water and 31% on sewer. And just simply Simply put, the laundromat cannot sustain that kind of increase.
And that's just year one.
That's just year one.
Anything else from you guys? Thank you. Pretty bleak. Council comments. Councilmember Demas?
I would like to see the financials and verify that. I mean, if we have $5 million in the bank, why is this something we're doing right now at like the worst economic time ever for business, I guess, would be my question. Are there projects that need to get done that we do not have the money for right now? Or do we have the money and we're thinking about the future, which is smart, but right now, I mean, come on. That's kind of where I'm at.
Councilmember Osenga?
Do you guys, anyone have any idea when we started this? When did we start this process?
Was it
Do
before
we remember?
COVID?
What was the first work session?
I think the very first start was, I believe it was August of
2020.
No.
19.
2019. It was
Yeah,
before
it's been-
COVID,
Yeah.
It's been started a while.
when it was contracted.
Yeah.
Brian, do you recall how long I've been
Well, I
poking
mean,
you for
I guess-
information?
I guess- no, I mean-
It was probably,
Well, I think your
Go ahead.
question was when did the results come back to us?
No.
Oh.
My question was, when did we start this?
Oh, okay.
That would impact why now. We didn't start right. We started, a year and a half ago before the pandemic started, and we were in this position. So that's why I was bringing that up, because it'll answer that question. It's not like we started this in the middle of a pandemic. We might have continued it.
Yeah, I see. Councilmember Cascarino?
So, is there any way that we could see what it would look like if we did so right now the CPI increases between, I think this last year, I didn't do the math for that, but it's anywhere from like 2.5 to 3.1 is what we're increasing every year already, even though we're not aware of it. It's an ongoing increase that's always happening every year. So I don't want to kick the can down the road by any means, and I don't want to just say no. I want to keep on looking for a solution. Is there any way that we could see a picture of what it would look like if we began to increase by a fixed rate instead of a CPI? Because I imagine the CPI in the next coming years is going to be lower, but our economy is going to get stronger because that's always how it works. If we could do a fixed CPI increase of maybe like 4% over the next 10 years, or not even a fixed CPI, but what would it look like if we did just across the board, everybody 4% increase over the next 10 years?
well, and I wanted to, is it okay if I speak?
Go ahead.
Yet another option is, the most important objective here is to make sure that you have the necessary revenues in order for the Public Works Department to be able to fund some of these critical needs. I mean, and that is the most important objective of the rate study. And certainly across the board or uniform adjustments is always an option if you don't want to do the. I think that the rate design is. I think it makes a lot of sense from a practical standpoint and a simplistic standpoint. But across the board adjustments would also would at least accomplish the most important objective of making sure that some of these critical renewal and replacement needs can be addressed.
Thank you, Councilmember Singer.
So I was just going to ask, are we talking about changing to this metered system then? Or are we talking about staying where we are now with the ERU system? What are we?
The metered system is what is proposed. And we think it makes a lot of sense for the city, and it's a good positive step for the city. You know, the most important objective of the rate study is, you know, as we talked about, one objective of the rate study is to figure out how much revenue we need, and then the other step is to figure out how to recover that revenue. And, you know, the most important objective is to make sure we get that revenue. And so I'm just, you know, and I don't, like I said, whether you stick on to I think the meter-based approach makes a lot of sense and is a good long-term, a good solution for the city, but, you know, across the board is also an option. If you're concerned about the effect on, for whatever reasons.
Do you have a follow-up? Councilmember Moss?
I have a question about, have we determined what the difference will be once we get everybody from back onto meters instead of ERUs?
I don't know that the
I mean, the rate study, we're anticipating that with the metered rates, we'll get the revenues that are projected in the rate study. But, you know, as I mentioned, we're recommending that as you get collections under the new rate structure, that you would that you would continue to review and monitor and see how the collections compare to what was projected in the study, and then make appropriate adjustments. So we talked about how in other work sessions about how it could be a multi-step process to get the rate structure to where we ideally want it to be.
Councilmember Pasquarelli?
Just say from my own experience, I just turned over 2 buildings that were on ERU, and my metered service and my savings are phenomenal. I wish I would have done it a couple years ago. I just thought that this was coming and was coming and was coming, and I didn't know where we were going to go. So I knew ERUs were way more expensive, especially the ERUs that were being applied to me were way more expensive than metered, but I didn't know how much. And so I would just encourage any citizens that are listening, maybe not residential, because if you're residential, that's a whole nother story. If we got residential.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess where I'm at, I've kind of, you know, gone running around and talked to people, different people, and over a period of time, and where I'm kind of feeling today is I feel like I would have a hard time supporting just an increase on business. I would probably want to see it across the board, more fair, maybe residential, if it's gonna have to be. But I also feel that there's a lot of business owners out there that feel really strongly about it not being the right time, and it is showing them that the city isn't empathetic toward the current events and situation of things. So I'm feeling definitely like that's an issue.
Councilmember Pasquarelli?
I don't want to take all of this work and all the hard work that Doug has done and that Brian has done and say no. I want to keep on looking forward to a solution. I just feel that there's other ways to disperse this. I mean, it says here on this worksheet that residential is almost 60% of the users for sewer. So it seems like we could extrapolate, and I don't know because I haven't seen the numbers, but quite a bit out of residential with a small increase. Meaning a fair increase across the board. So, and I would almost say, like, let's keep on looking at this and keep on having different scenarios and different conversations with the public, and maybe look more to doing this like the CEO of the city, like Tara said, looking to have this begin in 2022 when people can budget for it.
And that also might give us some time to see what kind of money we're going to be getting for infrastructure improvements as well. I mean, I understand that it's something we've been working on since August of 2019, but for over a year of that period of time, we've been dealing with a pandemic. So
comments?
Well, I always try to check.
I mean, it would the council, well, okay, so I think what I'm hearing from the council is that you would be supportive of maybe increasing the residential rates a little bit in order to, perhaps across the board, in order to lessen the blow to some of the commercial customers. But then maybe the first increase would be effective on in 2022 instead of 2021.
Yeah, let's hold off and let's just hold that thought for just a second. We're going to check with other council members on the dais. Councilmember McClure.
Well, I always try to be on the side of the residential customer too, and I spoke to that before. It seems like we didn't do the CPI increase the last couple of years. Is that true? Or have we been doing it?
We have been doing it, yes.
We have.
Yeah, it's based on a 5-year average,
Yeah,
so.
okay, so we
it's
have
in the
been
tariffs
increasing.
now as a 5-year average, so it doesn't hit hard if there's a big CPI or
So we're
goes
still
negative. It's always a 5-year, the previous 5 years.
I believe it was rescinded in 2017 for the 1 year, and
It
then
was
brought
just
back
1
the
year.
following year.
So it's been increasing 1 to 2% every year.
It was 1.2, I believe.
That area, right?
Was the last one.
Right. But I've seen as high as 3.1.
Well, I'm just thinking back, and maybe when I was in the audience, but there were times of talking about raising the residential rates, and people just went crazy. So it's not going to be a popular thing no matter where we raise it. I don't think we should put everything on the residential. If we're going to throw this whole thing away and do a flat, everybody gets a percentage increase, then it should be across the board in some way, and not put it all on the residential. So I'm at least one of us that doesn't want to put it all on the residential.
Okay, let's give Councilmember Osing a chance to comment.
Am I done?
Yeah, you can have a comment.
Sorry. You can say no.
Go ahead.
But as you're talking, I've been thinking about any time you change the method on which you calculate, and that seems to be a huge issue here. You're going from the largest users, who the more they use, the less they pay. I'm wondering if you could keep that same method of calculating gallons used, but change those rates instead of.
So we're trying to get away from that because that's an antiquated.
It is.
Yeah. So I think that majority of the utilities no longer do that.
Then how did you come
And
up?
plus sorry.
Go ahead.
Plus the state of Alaska wants utilities to have rate structures that encourage water conservation.
Then how
Because
did
there's not enough water in Alaska.
Right.
But go ahead.
Then how did you come up with the 663? How did that number come about? That flat rate?
Oh, $6.63.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you want to speak to that, Brian? That gallon rate of $6.63.
Sure. I mean, that's just, we look at the revenue that we need to collect, and we subtract the revenue we get from the unmetered residential customers, and then we come up with a rate. We look at the amount of billable gallons that we have, and then so the revenue divided by the billable gallons is the rate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, administration, were you trying to say something?
We're a whole town. I think the whole town should have a part in it. That's just, I just think if everybody has a little piece adding to it, it'll help instead of putting it all on either large general or the small general or the residential. I just think somehow we split it up between all of them. We're all in this together, so I think everybody should put something in it.
I agree, and I think the hard part is that graduated rate that we have now. So the people that use the most waters are gonna be the heaviest hit regardless. I'd like to see us work on this with more of a rate across all users, but I'd also like to see us, if we adopt something, as we take another look at this, plan on a March 2022 adoption so that folks have plenty of time to budget. And then hopefully in March, businesses are starting to get some summer bookings or, know what their business is gonna be for next year. I think it's gonna be a long, hard, maybe save up some savings this summer and then go into winter and then not. But that's just me. I don't know if other folks are looking at a January implementation or.
What was the original idea
Tomorrow.
This year.
implemented?
Next
April 15th was what the original idea. As we were going
This-
through these meetings,
Yeah.
we were trying to go through this, would have been the last work session, and then it goes to next week is on Monday is the council meeting for the public meeting introduction. And then it would then go into effect April 15th. That was the plan.
I would like to see us, when we're doing these things, be more aggressive. Like, I know there hasn't been a chamber lunch, but there's been chamber lunches in Zoom. And having examples of bills for specific businesses and making phone calls. And, some of this, I know we've had a number of work sessions and we expect people to be paying attention, but, there's a lot going on and businesses are just doing the best they can right now, in my opinion. Go ahead. Can I say one thing before I forget? We can't lose track of Councilmember Demas's question with cash on hand, annual. We need to make sure that that gets in the mix. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Pasquini.
I feel like we're kind of going back to the drawing board. So if we are, I know the state of Alaska is encouraging the communities to conserve on water. And I just don't know for places like, fishing industry where you have to, how can you conserve, how can you blow less water on a boat to clean it? Or how can you put less water on a conveyor belt? Maybe there's technology out there. And same with, you can get high efficiency washers, you can get high efficiency flushing toilets. So I just don't know where we came up with the usage less than 1 million gallons and usage more than $1 million gallons for those different prices, but maybe we could try getting that usage a little bit closer to the average large users. Because, am I wrong in thinking that there's probably only 8 places in Seward that use more than 1 million gallons? How many places use more than 1 million gallons?
It's basically the icicle, and that's why and that's one of the reasons for the reduced rate is that they just use a tremendous amount of water, and that's why we wanted to have a more we didn't want to we tried not to they are by far the largest user, and that's why we wanted to not cause too much disruption to them.
Great, so maybe we could, maybe there, sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Maybe there could be 3 of those classes, basically small general service, meaning the rates that you have there, because I was looking compared to what my water usage is for the places that I just put on meter. It's going to impact me, but it's nothing I don't think I couldn't afford. But then, places like laundromats, hotels.
Like a large general service and maybe an industrial rate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See if there's an industrial rate to implement.
A large general service rate. Because I think the industrial rate is there for icicle, right? So something in between those two that you could put all the other people that are saying this is going to be a 70% increase. Just a thought.
Well, and one thing I can say is perhaps a fundamental, like I said, one of the ways to lessen the impact to larger customers is to is to increase the residential customer rates more. Instead of 1.5%, which is, or 1.3%, what they got for 2021 would, and I think that's perhaps a fundamental issue that we need guidance from the council on, is whether you would support, what is your guidance on the residential rate, and then based on your guidance on the residential rate, we can do some more work on the commercial rate, on the non-residential rate.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were trying to get away from the industrial rate because that was something that we have now. We basically have what we would, I mean, it's not called an industrial rate, but it's a much lesser charge for the larger users. I thought that's the whole point of doing this, was to get rid of that.
No, it wasn't the whole point of doing this. I mean, I think even the electric utility is looking at reinstating an industrial rate. I think the point that they were talking about is, in the past, like, the more you use, then the less the gallons become, which is, that's not an industrial rate, it's a graduated billing on the gallons. Like when
It's known as declining rate structure, and you see it on the electric side, but that's just, it's not, that's a 1990s type water rate structure right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna clarify, I think ultimately what we were trying to do is make our bills more user-friendly, because if you have multiple blocks to try to figure out your bills, it's quite a math problem.
And that's a very good point. You know, when you have this kind of simplistic rate structure, it's going to be very easy for the city to develop revenue models and make revenue projections versus trying to figure out, well, how much gallons were billed at this block and how much were on this block, and trying to figure out the revenue that way.
Go ahead.
Brian, I got a quick question, just to kind of zoom out to the 30,000 foot level. To what degree does the proposal that we have in front of us reflect what we always kind of hear about, cost causer, cost payer? What we're evaluating here, how does that match up with that kind of data-driven approach to setting rates?
Well, some of the earlier communication on, we felt like the residential customers were subsidizing the commercial customers, and we've also talked about how it does appear that the SMIC customers are being subsidized too, and that was something that was recognized in the previous rate study from the 1990s. And so this is this rate study is trying to adjust the larger users are being do have larger increases than smaller users, but our analysis also suggested that other customer classes were subsidizing them.
Thank you.
So hydrants is 10% of the water. Who pays for the hydrants? Is that the city?
No, the hydrant use is when somebody gets a hydrant permit. It may be the state doing washing. It may be a construction project that's having to use a lot of water with water trucks to wash down whatever roads they might be doing.
Oh, and that's 10% of your budget.
Yeah, it's a.
Interesting. Yeah. Go ahead, Councilmember Prescott.
So what was the answer? So when the state is using it, it's the state paying for it, but when the city uses it, does the fund actually pay itself?
As far as fire hydrant use, the water, we don't charge for fire water itself. Fire hydrant use, when somebody comes to us to use a fire hydrant, then we have a fire hydrant form they have to fill out, and they pay for their metered water on it.
So, touch on the city question. So when when we start washing down the fire lanes and stuff like that, we get a meter from the water department, and then we didn't used to, but we do now, the water meter, and then it runs through the meter, and then the water guys will check the meter.
So, any other comments? questions?
Well, we'll be talking again,
Yeah.
it looks like, so, I've got a lot of notes, a lot of good, newer feedback we haven't had before, which is nice. You know, I think, yes, there's some to try to go out and see more people, there's also, we can see as many as we can, and there's always more. And when we make an adjustment, those are gonna change and more will come out as we make an adjustment. Just kind of like we've gone through as we do, let's say we bump residential up right now, the next meeting, you know, and I'm assuming, and we'll see, but I'm assuming that next week's council meeting isn't ready, that it'll have to be postponed. You know, just with tonight's discussion, I don't know to get everything ready and try to come up with implementing as many things as we can and then getting consensus on it. I really think, unfortunately, it's another work session to try to put together some more, but there's a lot of work here that's a little different and different ideas, and I think there's some things we can look at to try to do some more, just some more thinking on where we're at with it. I also want to see the different financials. They don't match what's in our study, what was given on the phone. So whether that was 2019 from 2018, by the time the CAFRA gets, I don't know. But I know that these projects that we do, most of the things we do with water, the last tank refurbishment, I mean, we got a grant for it for $700,000. Ended up costing the city another almost $300,000 out of the fund because here came lead paint. We had to do abatement on it. So $250,000 or better, just like that. Those things happen on these. The lagoon is going to be a biggie. We got to have money. I want to get a grant. I hope we do. I hope something comes through for that. Makes a huge difference. And like Brian said, we then can factor it in and try to pass that back. The good thing about this study and getting things done, he's put together a really wonderful program on the computer with the spreadsheets. So when we make one change, it goes through, like there's 15 different spreadsheets of things with the forecasting, with the rates, the whole thing goes through. It's really a good setup, and it is something we can use in the future as we get a year out. And I say a year out, that means a year like after we get a lot of people on the meters, so we can kind of check into our revenues, check into how things are working. Then we're able to make adjustments, come back to council and say, here's where we are, here's what the revenues came in at. So there's some real positives about it.
Yeah, good stuff.
There was one question.
It does.
Hey, I'm gonna let Norm's ready to go.
There was one question that I don't think Brian got an answer for, is with the across the board thing. I know 7% was thrown out there, but it was not directed. I just want to confirm, if we're going to look at that, what do you want? Do we were looking at 7% for homeowners? I'm just, because we're trying to figure out a rate for everybody, because that's what you're requesting, I believe. We just want to know what percentage are we going to look at for residential.
Let us drop that down some, because I think right now we're at 7% for the metered, right? 7% average, 10 and 4, 14, so 7% average still on your total, right?
Well, I was looking at it's only like $8 and some cents for residential.
But that's what I mean. Where do you get to? The thing is, you have a lot bigger pool of residential.
Sure.
So if it's more of a, whatever, 4% or a 5%, and then you start doing it across, where does it fall for the residential? What increase do you get there versus what decrease do you take on the other one, right? So, you know, it is, Brian mentioned, a balancing act.
Go ahead, Brian.
There's just different spots there.
And I think that's probably a reasonable. I think that'll if the residential is increased, the water and sewer. If we're looking at, you know, instead of 1.5%, looking at a 7%, I don't think the dollar value is going to be that big. But since it is, as was talked about, it's a you know, there's a larger customer base. It'll help ease the rates for the larger for the the larger users, and I guess lessen the, their rate impact. So I think that's a very reasonable direction to go, and just make the residential increases, consistent with the rates, with the overall increases.
Yeah, and I guess I wouldn't mind looking at a 5% and a 7%. I don't know how comfortable I am with 7%, but it'd be nice to see at least a couple options. Go ahead.
I think 7%, it's really the dollar amount isn't that much, it's the thought of telling people their rate's going up 7%. So I'd like to look at something closer to 5 at least. And I mean, what we're doing is just running numbers to see how much that would generate, how that could offset. But are you saying just look at it for residential and not increase the others?
No, I think
No, I think it
Across the board.
All the revenue has to be recovered. It would just, if we raised the residential a little bit more, and I would say if we had to raise them additional, let's say an additional 5%, that would be about $123.71. I'm sorry. Let me, if I can share my screen. Let me. I think so I can show you the comparison here. Okay, so this is the comparison. So if the residential for the first adjustment went up to $123.75, let's call it $124. From a dollar amount, it's really not that much, and you'd still be in the relative position competitively, but it would help lessen the burden on the larger users, and so that might be, I think, a reasonable solution to help for the city to move forward.
And I think early on we did have those project lists. If we could maybe resurrect those and then also answer Councilmember DeMoss's question, that'll help us get a better feel from matching all those things together. And we did have those presented to us right when we started, so it'd be good to just kind of close the loop on some of that again.
And I do think that we started out with a much larger list, several $1 million more, and then we whittled it down to the 7.7 million.
Great. Well, I'd say it was death by fire, but death by water is probably more appropriate. Yeah, I think we're getting there. I think simplifying the billing structure and ERU question would be huge for the city, and we just have to make sure that we're doing it right. Thank you for everyone that's made comments this evening. Thanks to administration. And with that, I will adjourn at just after 7. Thank you.